My girlfriend announced, "From now on, my friends live here too. You'll adjust." I nodded. Of course. While she was out celebrating, I changed the locks and sent her belongings to her parents' house. The screams outside my door when she returned told me everything I needed to know. I, 32 male, am a freelance graphic designer who works from home. My condo is my sanctuary, a quiet, ordered space I bought and curated myself. The centerpiece is a massive, custom-built terrarium, a self-sustaining miniature rainforest that took me 3 years to perfect. It's my pride and joy, the heart of my calm world. 18 months ago, I met Serafina, or Sarah. She's an aspiring life coach and micro-influencer, all curated authenticity and buzzwords. She was exciting and different, and 6 months ago I let her move in. That's when my sanctuary became her content studio. Her 2 best friends, Qley and Betrayal, unemployed creatives, who orbited her like moons, were constantly over. They enabled her, amplified her entitlement, and viewed me as a utility. They called themselves the tribe. The end came last Wednesday. I was finishing a project when the 3 of them cornered me in my workspace. Sarah had the look, the one that meant she'd made a grand decision and was about to bestow it upon me. "Leo, darling," she started while her friends smirked behind her. "The most amazing news. The universe has provided." I waited. Qley and Betrayal's landlord is a toxic entity, so they're leaving that space, she announced. And I realized this space, our space, it has so much room for their amazing energy too. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I knew what was coming next. She beamed a perfect influencer smile. "From now on, my friends live here too. We'll all be the tribe, together in one home. You'll adjust." It wasn't a request, it was a decree. I looked at Qley, who was already sizing up my second monitor, and Betrayal, who was touching my Monstera plant like she already owned it. They saw my home as a resource to be plundered. I wanted to scream, to list all the logical, adult reasons why this was insane. But I saw the trap. Any protest would be twisted. I'd be unsupportive, controlling, toxic. I would be the villain in her next tearful Instagram story. So I chose another path. I smiled. "Of course," I said, my voice perfectly even. "Whatever you need, Sarah. Welcome home, guys." The relief in the room was palpable. Sarah's performative anxiety melted into triumph. "I knew you'd understand. You're the best," she said, kissing me. "We have to celebrate our new home." Betrayal squealed. Within 20 minutes, they were out the door, off to a cocktail bar to manifest their incredible future. The door clicked shut. In the sudden, profound silence, I felt a cold, surgical clarity. She said I'd adjust, and I would. The moment their car was gone, I began. This wasn't anger, it was a necessary amputation. I pulled out every suitcase and box we owned and methodically packed her entire existence. Her clothes were folded, her makeup collection was boxed, her self-help books and crystals were sealed away. I worked with a detached efficiency, erasing her from my space. In just over an hour, every trace of her was gone, contained in cardboard. My terrarium, however, I covered with a protective sheet. It was mine. It was staying. Next, I found a 24/7 courier service online that handled emergency relocations. I gave them her parents' address and one critical instruction. The delivery was to be COD for the full, expensive amount. The dispatcher chuckled and said he understood completely. While I waited, I called a 24-hour locksmith and scheduled a full, high-security lock replacement. The courier van arrived, and 2 men helped me load Sarah's life into it. As it drove away, I felt a weight lift. The digital purge came next. Her fingerprint on my phone, her Face ID on my tablet, her access to all my streaming accounts, deleted. I changed the Wi-Fi password and blocked her number, along with her friends. Communication would now be intentional, not assumed. The locksmith arrived and worked quickly, handing me a new set of keys that felt solid and real in my hand. "Nobody's getting through that without a battering ram," he grunted. The bill was steep, but the peace of mind was priceless. It was just after 1 a.m. I sat on my couch in the quiet, clean space. My home felt like mine again for the first time in months. I was making tea when I heard them arrive around 2:30 a.m., a wave of drunken laughter echoing down the hall. My heart began a slow, heavy drumbeat. I heard her tea scrape in the lock, a pause, more scraping, frantic now. "What the?" "It's stuck," she slurred. More rattling, then a confused silence. "Leo?" she called out, her voice losing its edge of celebration. "Leo, open the door." This isn't funny. I stayed silent, listening. The pounding started, first hesitant, then a full-blown, enraged banging on my door. The screams that followed confirmed everything. She wasn't just locked out of a condo. She was locked out of a life she had taken for granted, and the cold reality was just beginning to hit her. Update 1. The chaotic symphony of pounding and screaming on my door went on for what felt like an eternity. It was a blend of Sarah's entitled rage, Keelan's aggressive shouts, and Brielle's shrill whining. They were putting on quite a show for the whole floor. "Leo, open this door right now. I live here." "Dude, what is your problem? Let us in." I let them burn through their energy. After about 10 solid minutes, I decided it was time to face them. I slid the chain lock into place and opened the door a few inches. Sarah's face was a wreck of smeared makeup and furious disbelief. Her two acolytes hovered behind her like angry gargoyles. "Leo, finally! What is going on? My key isn't working," she demanded, trying to shove the door open against the chain. "I changed the locks," I said calmly. My level tone seemed to unnerve her more than yelling would have. "You what? Why would you do that without telling me?" "You don't live here anymore, Sarah," I said, stating a simple fact. "I took your announcement to mean our relationship was over. I acted accordingly." Her jaw fell. "What are you talking about? I was making room for our tribe. You agreed." "No," I corrected. "You informed me of a decision about my home. I let you think I agreed so I could handle this without a scene." I let that sink in. "Your belongings have been sent to your parents' house. I trust you have the cash to cover the delivery fee." The mention of the COD fee lit a fire in her eyes. Keelan stepped forward. "You can't do this, man. We had an agreement." "I have no agreement with you," I said, my gaze turning cold. "You are trespassing. Leave now before I call the police." That was the wrong thing to say. It was a challenge. "You wouldn't dare," Sarah spat. "I'll tell them you threw me out on the street with nothing." "Go ahead," I replied. "Explain to the officers how you're the victim while trying to break into a home where you have no lease, your ID has a different address, and you're not on the mortgage." They didn't leave. The screaming match moved to the hallway. I closed and bolted the door and called building security, who told me to call the non-emergency police line. A single, tired-looking officer arrived 20 minutes later to find Sarah in full-blown victim mode, complete with dramatic, hiccuping sobs. "Officer, thank goodness," she cried. "My ex, he's gone crazy. He locked me out of our home." I calmly explained the situation. "She lived here as my guest, officer. This evening she informed me her two friends would be moving in without my consent. I ended the relationship and had her belongings delivered to her permanent address. She has no legal claim to this residence." The officer asked to see her ID. Her face fell. She couldn't produce a single piece of mail or a bill in her name for my address. I, on the other hand, had my mortgage statement ready. The officer looked at her. "Ma'am, this is a civil matter. You do not have the right to be here. You need to leave the premises." Defeated, they finally left, but not before Sarah shot me a look of pure hatred. "You will regret this," she hissed. The next morning, the fallout began in earnest. Her mother, Mrs. Vance, called. "Leonard," she began, her voice dripping with poison. "I have just paid a truly exorbitant fee for 36 boxes of my daughter's things. Can you explain why you would throw a sweet girl out like a piece of garbage?" "Mrs. Vance," I said calmly, "Sarah attempted to move 2 other adults into my home without asking. That ended our relationship. I'm not responsible for her housing." I hung up on her shrieks about how I was a cold, heartless monster. Next came the social media smear campaign. Sarah went live on Instagram, weeping to her followers about her toxic, controlling ex who threw her out for wanting to help her unhoused friends. She conveniently omitted the part where she was now living in her parents' comfortable, suburban home. My social media was flooded with hate messages. I spent the morning making everything private. The most audacious move came 2 days ago, via email. She was now claiming I had stolen her most valuable asset, my terrarium. According to her, it was a collaborative art project and a symbol of her spiritual and creative investment. She demanded its immediate return or a payment of $5,000. The sheer gall was breathtaking. She was trying to steal the one thing in my home that was purely and completely mine, something I had started building a year before I even met her. This was no longer just a breakup. This was war. I spent the afternoon gathering every receipt, every old photo, and every forum post I had documenting the terrarium's creation. Then I booked a 1-hour consultation with a lawyer who confirmed I was on solid ground. He provided me with a template for a formal cease and desist letter regarding her harassment and false claims. I sent it immediately. Now, I'm waiting. Word on the street is she's telling everyone she's taking me to court. I hope she does. I'm ready. Update 2. Sarah made good on her threat. A week after I sent the cease and desist, I was served with a notice to appear in small claims court. She was suing me for the maximum allowed $7,500, citing the value of the stolen terrarium and damages from an illegal eviction. A part of me was anxious, but a much larger part of me felt a grim sense of readiness. She wanted a public stage for her drama, and I was about to give her one. The court date was last Tuesday. I arrived with a single, neatly organized folder of evidence. Sarah was already there with her entourage, Qley, Brielle, and her mother, all dressed for a funeral. Sarah herself wore a white dress, an obvious and pathetic attempt to project innocence. When our case was called, she launched into a performance worthy of an Oscar. She painted herself as a vulnerable artist who was cruelly discarded by a jealous man. "He threw me out in the middle of the night," she declared, her voice cracking. "Just because I wanted to help my friends, he performed an illegal eviction." She then moved on to the terrarium. "And he stole our art," she said. "It was a collaborative project, a symbol of our love. I sourced the rare orchids, I designed the layout. It's worth thousands, Your Honor." Qley and Brielle were called as witnesses and proceeded to perjure themselves without hesitation, backing up her every lie. When it was my turn, I calmly walked to the podium and opened my folder. "Your Honor, Miss Vance was a guest in my home, not a tenant," I began. I produced the deed to my condo, my mortgage statements, and utility bills, all exclusively in my name. There was no lease, she paid no rent. Her guest status was revoked when she informed me that her 2 friends would be moving into my 1-bedroom condo permanently. Then I addressed the terrarium. "As for the collaborative art project," I said, "I have here receipts for every component. All of them are dated between 2020 and 2021. I met Miss Vance in the summer of 2023. I placed the stack on the podium. I also have time-stamped photographs of the terrarium in my home from before she moved in, and a printout from a hobbyist forum where I documented the entire construction process." I slid the binder of evidence toward the judge. Sarah's face had gone pale. "Finally, Your Honor," I said. "Miss Vance claims she was cast out into the cold. This is an audio recording from my security doorbell from the night in question." I played the recording. The courtroom filled with the sound of her drunken screaming and Qley's threats. The judge listened, his eyes fixed on Sarah. When it was over, he looked at her. His voice was ice. "Miss Vance, is there anything you'd like to say in response?" She stammered, completely deflated. The judge held up a hand. "That's enough. Judgment for the defendant. Case dismissed." He then fixed her with a hard stare. "Miss Vance, you and your witnesses have come dangerously close to committing perjury today. This court is not a stage for your personal dramas or a tool for extortion. You have wasted this court's time. Do not let me see you in here again." The public humiliation was total. Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. I thought that would surely be the end of it, but her defeat only made her more desperate and vicious. A few days ago, my doorbell rang. It was an officer from Animal Services. "Sir," he said politely, "we received an anonymous complaint alleging you're neglecting an exotic animal in a sealed glass container in your living room." My blood ran cold. This was a new low. She was trying to have my terrarium, my living work of art, confiscated and destroyed. This was a direct strike at something I loved. "Please, come in, officer," I said, my voice shaking slightly. I led him to the terrarium. He was an older man with a kind face who, it turned out, was a fellow hobbyist. He immediately recognized it as a beautifully maintained, fully bioactive ecosystem. "There are no vertebrates in here, officer," I explained, "just isopods and springtails." He smiled. "We get these revenge calls all the time after bad breakups," he said as he was leaving. "I'm filing this as unfounded and malicious. You have a good day." When the door closed, my shock had morphed into a cold, hard rage. She had crossed a fundamental line. My response so far had been defensive. It was time to be proactive. Her entire identity, her fledgling career as an influencer, was built on a fragile image of wellness and authenticity. Her sponsorships depended on it. I spent the evening drafting a new email. It was polite, professional, and utterly devastating. I sent it to the marketing departments of every brand she was affiliated with. The subject was simple: regarding your brand ambassador, Serafina Vance. In the email, I laid out the facts, stripped of emotion. I attached the public court record showing her case was dismissed with prejudice. I highlighted the judge's official warning about perjury. I included screenshots of her online harassment and a copy of the unfounded Animal Services report. I ended the email with a single sentence: as a consumer who values integrity, I believed you would want to be aware of the conduct of the individual you have chosen to represent your brand's values. Then I hit send. It was time for Sarah to learn that actions have consequences, not just in a courtroom, but in the world she cared about most. Final update. It's been 7 months since I changed the locks on my life. The storm has passed, and the resulting peace is better than I could have imagined. The emails I sent to Sarah's sponsors were a precision strike. In the world of influencer marketing, where brand safety is paramount, an ambassador publicly associated with perjury, harassment, and malicious lawsuits is toxic waste. The yoga mat company was the first to quietly scrub her from their website. The herbal tea brand terminated her affiliate code a day later. Within a week, every small sponsorship she had evaporated. There was no public firing, just a silent, digital erasure. Her tiny stream of income, the very thing that propped up her life coach fantasy, was gone. She tried to spin it, of course. She posted a rambling, tearful video from her childhood bedroom, talking about being the target of a coordinated misogynistic attack from a vindictive ex. But the narrative was wearing thin. The comments were no longer universally supportive. People were asking questions. What court case? Why did all your sponsors drop you at once? Without brand validation, her influencer career collapsed. She was just another angry person complaining into her phone. Her follower count stagnated, then started to drop. Eventually, she stopped posting altogether. I heard the rest of the story through a mutual acquaintance. The tribe was the first casualty. Kaylin and Brielle's dream of a creative commune died quickly under the harsh reality of living at Sarah's parents' house without me to fund their lifestyle. The fighting was constant. Kaylin moved back to his hometown. Brielle is reportedly still trying to become a TikTok star. Sarah's downfall was more complete. Her parents, having enabled her for years, finally reached their limit. Being forced to pay for her belongings, being dragged into her public legal humiliation, and now having her back home as a jobless, bitter adult was the final straw. They gave her an ultimatum: get a real job and pay rent, or get out. The last I heard, Sarah is working as a cashier at a home goods store. She apparently tells anyone who will listen that her ex-boyfriend stole her dream and ruined her life. There has been no self-reflection, no accountability. In her story, she will always be the victim. She learned nothing. As for me, I'm thriving. My home is my sanctuary once more. I repainted the living room and started designing a new, more complex terrarium for my office. The original is flourishing. A perfect, self-contained world, utterly indifferent to the drama that once surrounded it. This was never about revenge in the cinematic sense. It was about consequences. Sarah built a life on a foundation of entitlement, and when I removed the single pillar holding it up, my compliance, the entire structure came crashing down. She demanded that I adjust to her reality. Instead, I simply reasserted my own. She tried to take the thing I loved most and use it as a weapon. She failed to understand that, like my life, my terrarium was something I had built with care on a solid foundation. It couldn't just be taken. Sometimes I think about the sound of her screaming outside my door that night. It wasn't the sound of my victory. It was the sound of her delusion, colliding with an unmovable, real-world consequence. And that, I've realized, is the most satisfying sound of all. It's the sound of peace.